evening and welcome to the Planning Commission, excuse me, September 12th, 2023 meeting. Shannon, can we have roll call, please?
Messina.
Here.
Fleming.
Here.
Ingalls.
Here.
Lutrip.
Here.
Coppice.
Here.
McCracken.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Well done, thank you. We have join me for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Need approval of the June 20th impact fee workshop minutes, please?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
First, have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need approval of the August 8th Planning Commission meeting minutes.
I so move.
Motion. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. At this time would be public comments. Anyone that wants to speak about anything that isn't on our agenda tonight, welcome to come up to the podium. No? Okay. Staff comments, please.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Well,
evening.
tonight is Shanna's last meeting with our Planning Commission. She's been with the city for 28 years and has been our administrative assistant and liaison to the Planning Commission. So we are sad to see her go, but happy for her to retire. And we welcome Tracy Clark, who is here this evening, that will be our new administrative assistant. So you'll be seeing her at our future meetings as well. So I want to remind you, I think you've received the invitations, the joint workshop with the City Council regarding our impact fees will be on September 25th at noon. So we'll be able to go through more of the information from the consultant team and get questions answered and get some direction from City Council on that as well. And I think having the joint workshop is a great opportunity for that discussion with the Planning Commission and Council. On our regular meeting, there will be 2 hearings. We have a special use permit request and an annexation request. And then wanted to remind you too, you received an invitation to the joint workshop with the planning and zoning commissions throughout Kootenai County. So that's November 2nd from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And so RSVP to Greta, you've received that information. If not, I will forward that to you. And then lastly, the Kaufman Estates, that has been, so there was a denial for that request from the Planning Commission. The applicant is appealing that, so that will be going forward to City Council in October. So just wanted you to be aware of that as well.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any commission comments at this time? Yes, John.
I'd like to congratulate Shanna, on a long and absolutely stellar career with the city of Coeur d'Alene. I didn't realize you'd worked 28 years. That's really remarkable for the city. You do so many things behind the scenes for the planning department to keep it running smoothly. Most noticeably for us, you're the care and literally feeding of the planning commission. But the agendaizing and noticing and packet prep and the minutes, myriad other tasks. You've done a great job, and I just look over at the table over there and think of the literally thousands of hours you've sat there probably, and many times till midnight, 2 a.m, knocking away at the minutes. And the minutes that you take are thorough, accurate, but I thank you for your service, and I wish you the best that the freedom of retirement will bring you. And I said in an email earlier to you, I said, if anybody tries to tell you that retirement isn't cracked up to what it is. It's great. You're going to love it. So thank you and well done.
I also would like to say thank you, Shannon, for the years that you've been here. And don't want to get emotional, as I said, but on behalf of the Planning Commission, here are some flowers from all of us for the years that you've given us. Okay, the hard part's over with. So, let's get into our business. We have a administrative item, SP-22, request for a one-year extension. Mike?
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
The applicant is Coeur d'Alene Homes Incorporating, doing business as Orchard Ridge Senior Living, and they're requesting a one-year extension for their R34 special use permit on a 1.9 acre parcel associated with the campus known as Orchard Ridge Senior Living at 704 West Walnut. Last year, on August 9th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item and approved the item by 7-0 with one condition. The decision point tonight before you is to approve or deny the request by Coeur d'Alene Homes for a one-year extension of an approved R34 density increase special use permit. Just a reminder and a refresher for where this is located. This is US 95. This is Northwest Boulevard. Here's the subject property highlighted in yellow. Here's a close-up aerial photograph of the property. Here's the applicant's site plan that was submitted at the time requesting the density increase that will allow 68 units up to 63 feet. So the commission alternatives tonight is the commission may, by a motion, grant a one-year extension of the approved special use permit to August 24th, 2024, or the commission may, by a motion, deny the one-year extension. If it is denied, the item expires and the applicant must reapply for the density increase special use permit.
Okay, questions of Mike? No?
May we make a motion?
We can make a motion, yes?
Okay, I make a motion that we grant a one-year extension to August 24th, 2024.
Okay, I have a motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
I have a
Couple
second
seconds?
from Phil.
I did, but I heard
Okay.
someone else too. It's
All
up
right.
for grabs. Paper.
And I guess we can have roll call on this. Shannon, please?
Messina,
Yes.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Coppice,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good job again. Next, we have a public hearing. Item is a proposed multi-use special use permit in a light manufacturing zoning district, SP-7-23. Mike?
All right, thanks.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
the applicant is David Schrantz, architect, and the owner is Arzardo LLC. Property is located at 3912 North Schreiber Way. And they're requesting a special use permits for the following 3 commercial and 3 service uses. The commercial activities are business supply retail sales, food and beverage stores on and off site, specialty retail sales, and then the service activities are commercial recreation, personal service establishment, and professional and administrative offices. The full list is on page, and the definitions are on page 2 of your staff report. So the light manufacturing district is intended for a variety of manufacturing uses that are conducted primarily indoors with some outdoor manufacturing activities allowed that may create some noise, dust, and odor. Residential uses are not permitted. So here's a location map indicating the location of this property. It's highlighted here in red. This is US 95, this is Kathleen, this is Schreiber Way. Here's a close-up aerial photograph. The property is currently vacant. This is Howard Street, this is Schreiber Way. And here's a bird's eye view looking north of the vacant property. So there are 3 findings that must be met in order for a special use permit to be approved. We'll go through each and every one of these. We're starting off with the first one is finding B8A, that the proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan indicates that this area as a generalized industrial place type. And there's a close-up aerial photograph there indicating the general industrial place types are pretty much surround the property, but to the east, there's a retail center corridor, and to the south, there's a residential PUD. So the comprehensive plan indicates that industrial areas are areas or locations that provide concentrated areas of employment that create goods and services with a mix of indoor industrial uses separate from residential uses. Primary uses include manufacturing, warehousing, storage, and industrial parks located in 1 to 2 story buildings with a variety of building footprints and interior ceiling heights. So the primary uses are manufacturing, warehouse, storage, industrial parks, automotive, and secondary are office and commercial. So here's the comprehensive plan indicates the bicycle network, the the sidewalk network, and the public transit. So this property is located here, and it's adjacent to a planned public bike network on Howard. And here's some sidewalks on Schreiber, and then the public transportation, the nearest one is off of Ramsey. So the comprehensive plan framework talks about community identity. Coeur d'Alene citizens are well-informed, responsive, and involved in the community discussion. Involves environment and recreation, growth and development. The goal would be develop a mix of land uses throughout the city that balance housing and employment while preserving the qualities that make Coeur d'Alene a great place to live. For jobs and economy, one of the goals would be retain, grow, and attract businesses with an objective to foster pro-business culture that supports economic growth. The next finding, B8B, that the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. So here's a map indicating the adjacent uses on the properties. You've got a wine cellar location here, a brewery, there's a tax office located here, and a variety of commercial uses throughout Schreiber Way. This map indicates all the special use permits that have been approved in this area. And as you can see, there's quite a few filling up the Schreiber Way, this manufacturing, light manufacturing location. And this was just another one that'll fill in the hole. So here's the zoning map. Current zoning is light manufacturing. To the south is manufacturing. To the west is C17L. To the east is C17. And to the north, light manufacturing. And the surrounding zoning and land use patterns is commercials, predominantly commercial land uses that surround it. However, there's a residential PUD to the south. Here's some site photos. This is standing on Schreiber Way looking east through the vacant property. And this is on Schreiber Way. This slide's looking north, and this slide is looking south. The next finding B8C, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. This application has been routed through the city departments, and each department has indicated there are adequate public services and facilities available. And the full comments are on page 19 and 20 of your staff report. The applicant has submitted a site plan indicating that the building will be primarily relocated at the center of the property with some parking in the front and parking in the rear, with sidewalks along Schreiber. The Planning Commission may, as conditions of approval, establish reasonable requirements as conditions of approval to mitigate any impacts that would adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood. City staff has indicated 3 proposed conditions, and the alternative actions tonight are for the Planning Commission will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Questions? Yeah, John?
Mike, good report as usual. I appreciate that. Page 2 of your staff report, I want to talk a little bit about a couple questions. You make a point here that the applicant is aware that this is a light manufacturing zone, and as you do your retail sales and food and beverage and this and that, maybe you got an outdoor space or whatever it might be, you make kind of a point here that, the applicant needs to be aware, and I guess for the record, that this is light manufacturing.
Yeah, that is correct. It is a light manufacturing zone, and other uses that are permitted in the manufacturing district are allowed by right to go into these other buildings and surrounding areas and to do business in the manufacturing zone, but could create some adverse, with noise and dust could be generated through that.
So we have a duty, do we not, to protect existing manufacturer operations in there? I mean, so I guess you're making that point that they move in and they do some food and beverage stuff on site, and there's a little clanking and clinking of noise from the wine bottles coming off the assembly line. You say that in the future, the city's going to support the operation of the manufacturers. So it's kind of like, you know, if we approve this, be aware that there may be a little bit of noise, a little bit of dust, a little bit of, you know, it is a manufacturing area. It might be a good fit, but
That is correct. We just wanted to make sure the applicant, they're aware of it, we're aware of it, and that the manufacturing uses are the right underlining zoning. Yep.
thanks, thank you.
And this is the same notice you've given to all people that ask for special use permits in the area.
Yeah, in this
So
area.
it's consistent, yes.
Yep, it's consistent.
Very good point, John.
The other thing is, at the decision point, they called out the 6 activity uses, and they really tried to cover a lot of breadth to this. But then they also break it down into the 3 service activities and 3 commercial activities. On whose shoulders does that monitoring of that breakup happen, or should we even ask them to
Well,
have 3
when
and 3?
They apply for the building permit, we'll look at the special use permit, and it would have to fit into one of those categories, so the permit wouldn't be, they'd have to come back to the planning commission and request another special use permit for that activity.
And a lot of these are leasehold. This is probably a leasing situation. So we found that with the archery event, that they found out after the fact that they had to pull a special use permit. So I think it behooves the owner to notify whoever's handling the leasing to make sure that they're aware of this, so that they don't have to have, you know, what the archery people had to go through. So I just think they might be putting themselves in a tight box. 6 uses, great. Breadth, great. But are we forcing them into, oh, you're not a service activity, you've got to be moved over? So I think that it behooves us to make sure that they're aware that they're constraining themselves. And yeah, you're right. We're at the point where the light manufacturing is almost a hidden thing in the background. We've moved to a broader retail operation on this whole street. But it looks great, and it's busy, and it's active, and it's been a great benefit to this northern part of our city, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go right ahead, Phil.
Mike, as I understand the application, they are applying for a special use for uses that fit into a category. There is no specific use being identified,
There are
other than it will
3
be these within the special use
That is
provision of the
correct.
code.
There's not a specific one. They're trying to have a broad brush to allow those 6 special use permits, so someone could come in.
And I'll be honest, I have a little bit of concern here that the purpose of a special use is because it could have a greater impact on surrounding properties. And therefore, it needs a separate review so everyone knows what's going on, and they can make their concerns known. I kind of feel that what we're doing here is almost creating a separate zoning district for this particular parcel, because they can do anything that fits into those categories as long as city staff looks at it and says, yeah, it's a recreation use, yeah, it's a retail use. And I just kind of feel like that's just really almost going against what the code is supposed to do, and I do take some exception to that.
Yeah, I think we kind of had a similar discussion the last one that was up here, and, I mean, would it make sense if it was gonna be so broad that we would have an overlay of the 2 zonings, you know, that exist in there, as opposed to having a special use permit approved without the actual use? I mean, it does seem a little backwards, I guess, maybe, on the way that is.
We have done these 6 uses on other properties in this area. So this is not a precedent. This is something we've already
There's some
done.
precedent there.
Yeah, there is, across from Gino, and,
Yep.
yeah. Mixed use within one structure, multiple tenancies, different activities going side by side. You hope that whoever is the owner is very cognizant of not irritating one by the other, and so is selective in that. And we have to trust that the owner is going to take care of their building and their property and make sure that, you know, they're protecting their investment as well. So we got it happen. It's already happening here, so.
Mike, you had a slide about 2/3 of the way through. I'm not certain which one it was. It kind of speaks to everything you're talking about right now. It overviewed the light manufacturing, and then to the right of it, it had a bunch of different codes.
Nick, the one that you just
Might
passed
be
through,
one more.
that one.
This one?
Nope. It might have been that one. I'm looking here, but keep going back, 'cause I think you're Let's stop here for just a second.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. Now, I see on the left, the subject property is listed as light manufacturing, and that's a specific parcel, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you can kind of get the logic behind all those parcels that are light manufacturing in that area, and you can transpose that to the right with what's really going on with the land usage.
Right.
And many of those light manufacturing parcels are actually looking like they're commercial, not,
That is correct. They're in a commercial type use, where there's a civic use that is located here. So it's primarily office and commercial uses already established. These are the manufacturing uses, these dark ones. So out of this whole area that's zoned manufacturing, you really have 3 parcels that are manufacturing.
that are actually manufacturing. And have you heard from any of those parcels or those business owners about the negative impacts of having the commercial stuff going on in their zone, so to speak?
I'm unaware of any complaints coming out of this area. We have not been notified of them.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Mike, appreciate
You're
it. I have the applicant who signed up, Dave Schroetz. You want to come up and,
Only if there's any questions.
okay? Another person I
Well,
have,
I have a question.
what?
I have a question.
Dave, just state your name and where your city you live in, and I'll swear you in.
Dave Schronson with Design Group Architecture in Hayden.
All right, do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right ahead, go ahead.
So you're fully aware and understand the zoning of light industrial and what is permitted there, and so forth.
I do.
And
yes.
those things may be inconsistent with the operation of your business.
Yes, yes.
And that's the way it's going to be because that's the way the zoning is.
And that's been
Scope-
explained to the client numerous times.
As it was raised earlier, that a lot of this is doing something other than light industrial. And it seems to me that sort of speaks positive of our planning process and so forth. If there's a better use for the property within the same zoning and so forth, we use it. And if there's a way to do special use permits on it, but still keep the integrity of it being an industrial area, that's what we want to do.
Right.
And on occasion, we'll get things here before us where people get extremely concerned about activities within their area because it is incompatible with what they view the zoning is. And it's very emotional. So you're well aware of it, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions?
Any questions? No? Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I have Steve Jennings.
Yes.
Come on up and I'll swear you in. Just tell me the city you live in, Steve.
Hayden Lake.
Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right ahead.
You've kind of already addressed my concern. This is kind of a blanket form special use permit. Almost sounds like it's going to be a strip mall or something. They want to sell food, beverages, do recreational commercial work. Can we narrow it down?
Well, I guess we can put conditions.
I mean, are there other properties on here that have 6 different special permits for use?
According to what I see.
Which one?
Mike telling us.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, to clarify too, so Mike's going to pull up the example of the one that has multiple special use permits that are valid on their site, but also on page 2 of the staff report, it notes that the special use permit is only valid for 2 years if an activity ceases to exist. So while they're asking for 6, if they only get 4 of those,
Okay, with the dance studio.
they have
and,
uses
you
that
know,
kind of
and-
continue under those 4, the other ones would drop off if they haven't
Maybe
actively
that's not
had a
everyone.
use under those other categories.
No, that's fine. I'm familiar with
That's
that
a
one.
bit of a protection as well. They're not getting 6 in perpetuity. They have to actively utilize those uses to keep the special use permits valid.
I'm not objecting to a special use permit. I would just like to, narrow it down to exactly what's going to be going in there. We get substantial traffic the way it is now. It's really difficult to get out since the Keller Williams building went in there to get out onto Kathleen. If you want to make a left turn off of Schreiber at quitting time, it's nearly impossible.
Well, we can have a discussion about.
Oh,
the motion.
That's fine, I just wanted to give my 2 cents.
Sure, no problem, appreciate it. Thank
Oh,
you very much.
Sir, so there's too many activities permitted, you think? I don't know how we can quantify what's too many and whatnot, but you talk about parking or traffic. Is traffic the key issue for you?
No, not necessarily. It's just, I'd like to keep some of it light manufacturing. I do light manufacturing on Schreiber Way, and it feels like I'm going to eventually be pushed out because we want to, turn it into something different. Maybe another, winery or RV parking.
So how would one be pushed out? Sell their land?
No, not sell their land, but eventually when all the special services and everything else get tired of looking at a little industrial building, they may want to try to rezone me out.
Well, I think that was the basis of my comments and John's comment, that the primary thing is light industrial, and we anticipate it staying that way. That's at least my anticipation on voting on this issue.
Yeah, well, there's not very much light manufacturing left in there.
That's true. It's true.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh.
I've got a follow-up for Mike, just based on this discussion. Mike, when we talk about light manufacturing and the city's capacity to be involved in that whole realm, I think the United States last year passed a big bill on trying to develop this manufacturing process, building things at home, so to speak, made for America by Americans. And when you look at that and the interest specifically in this region, I think there's some stuff rolling out where they're looking at building some higher tech capabilities, aviation-related, support Department of Defense initiatives. And at some point, I know we've been in discussions regionally in how we're postured to be able to support those kind of activities. Mr. Jennings, it may not be light manufacturing, but it speaks to your point in terms of manufacturing in general. How much do we have left, and is it enough in terms of the comp plan, or is there a vision for that?
Well, the comp plan indicates this whole area to remain light manufacturing and manufacturing. So if one of these, like a winery, goes out of business or something, a drone company can move in there and start doing manufacturing right off the bat by permitted use. They don't have to do a special use or nothing. It's already zoned. The underlying zoning is not going to be changed. The special use permit just allows those specific uses on the manufacturing lot or the light manufacturing lot, whatever it may be. But this is the main chunk of light manufacturing in the city of Coeur d'Alene. So it would probably, and the comp plan indicates that it should remain light manufacturing and manufacturing.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
I guess I have a question on I agree with Commissioner Ward where we're approving kind of a blanket option here.
Sorry, do you have a question for Mike, or? is this
Yeah, I have
kind
a
of
question for
discussion?
Mike.
Okay.
I'm curious if, if they do have tenant space in there and so maybe 2 of the tenants might fall under the light manufacturing, and then, another 2 would need a special use permit. About how long is that process if they came for a permit for that particular specific use? And then you could evaluate, like, what is the parking capacity of that use, or how much traffic would it create, or what other issues might it cause a neighbor? Because that's usually when they come through as a special use, that's the discussion. And it's hard to have that discussion without a particular use in there, but I also understand that, that takes time. It's probably a couple months at least for it to come through.
It is, the architect could
Process.
talk more about it, but it's my understanding it's a one-unit building. There's
It's a
not
one-unit
multiple
building.
units in it, but they can talk to more about it. But
Yeah.
the parking would be vetted through it, and it looks like there's adequate parking based on the square footage of that building for the commercial activity.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I don't
Mike, if I got clarity on this, they're asking for a special use permit, and the 3 service activities that we have listed here is kind of what they're going towards, not just a blanket special use in a light manufacturing. Are they retying this special use permit into these 3 service activities that might be in that building at some point in time?
That's correct. It's 6 activities, actually. There's 3 for the.
6, I'm sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
turn the page.
commercial,
Yeah.
and 3 for the service.
Yeah, so
So
they're.
like if a gym wanted to go in there, a weightlifting gym, or, that's allowed by, this special use permit.
Right.
But they have 1 year from the date, or it expires from today. So remember, we
Right.
have the 1-year expiration. If this doesn't get off the ground, the whole thing expires in 1 year. And then if the use goes away after 2 years, then that expires too. Then they have to come back and do another special use permit.
So these 6 activities are under the special use permit, and that's what we're approving now. If
That-
they decide they want to put something else other than these 6 in,
They
they
would
have to come back to us.
That is correct.
And/or the time expires for any of these 6 within that 1 year or 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
those go away, and if something else changes, they have to come back to us.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just don't know if it's unreasonable to ask that the person doing one of these uses come and present for that use.
I don't think they
the
would
normal
have to come
process.
back to us for any of these uses if we
If we approve it
this.
now, right.
Yeah, if we approve this, any one of these 6 can be used within that time frame of a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
So that it wouldn't come back to us, it would just go forward with the permit going through the planning department to say it's okay. Anything different than these 6, it would start another process.
That's correct.
So we're approving 6 targeted commercial, personal service, professional administration offices, and the other 3.
Right.
In lieu of just light manufacturing, which
Right.
can be, which is zoned
They-
the way
they
it
could
is
do that
now.
by
That
right,
could be
yeah.
an array of different things under light manufacturing. Okay. Any other questions before I close public testimony on this? Okay, I'm gonna close public testimony and bring it to commissioners for further discussion and a motion.
Make a comment.
Go right ahead.
I probably have no problem with any of the individual uses listed as a special use permit in the zoning code for this district. But they are a special use for a specific reason. They do have different impacts from the listed permitted uses in that zoning district. And for us to just say, go for it, and not us really see a plan that can assess the impact, I think is not really our job. And I would have no problem coming back and say they want to do a certain thing or a certain use, but just an open-ended approval, I feel more like a marketing consultant than a zoning consultant. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yeah, to-
Go right ahead.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
to
Mike.
Phil's point, I agree the same way, and I understand a process, Mike, has been, happened in the past where this was done, but that doesn't necessarily mean, just because it happened in the past, it should happen again. And really, Mr. Adams, to you, I don't know if there's some kind of legal precedent set when you do something and then you don't allow someone else to do it, if that means you're suppressing their right to do what someone has done before them. If you could discuss that, it would be very helpful.
No. Also want to point out on page 5, under the light manufacturing zoning district, it tells us what can be in there, and it's basically different than these 6 uses. So I hear everyone's point of view on that. And I want to point out, Dave who spoke, he was the architect of the project. Yeah, sorry. Dave, he's the architect of the project, so I'm sure he's representing the owner of the building.
Correct.
That's kind of where we're at on this.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with these guys as well. If the, part of the public process is that if there's a use there and the neighbors have a concern with that use, that they can come speak to that. And I feel like we're kind of circumventing that process by approving these uses in this form, so.
The 6 particular
Yeah.
uses, okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I ask staff, the permitted uses in the zone, do we have any business retail sales activities in the zone?
Yeah, I mean, they all.
By just the light manufacturing or with special use
Yeah,
permit?
no, but in our light manufacturing unit, are there any special use permits for business supply retail?
Yes,
Are there any business for food, beverage stores?
yes,
Are there any ones for special retail sales?
yes.
I don't, I sort of hear what you're being said, that there's too many, but I think it's consistent with what we're doing, and I support this.
Because the 6 items, this is a little different than when the other ones came before us to do, as Hillary was saying, for sales of wine or other uses. It was a particular use. Here, we're kind of a blanket, not a blanket, but there are 9 of them that we're saying, okay, you can do any one of those 9 as well. Go ahead, John.
When I read this at home in the packet, I'm asking myself, why aren't they being really specific and painting a picture that it's, it's a whatever wine mart or whatever the name of the business is going to be. But a lot of times there's reasons in the business process that you don't divulge everything and whatnot. And maybe there's a couple alternatives that are being kicked around, and until they get feedback or approval from us, they don't know exactly what to go forward with. And maybe the vision there is that it ends up being a combination of a couple of these things. I think like the wine place and the trickster's place, and some of those have they hit a couple of these. They're retail sales, and they're also beverage and on-site and whatnot. I'm kind of like Commissioner Luttrop in my thinking. I said to myself, it could be any one of these or maybe a combination, and if so, is that commensurate with all the other, as Mike's word said, eclectic. This is an eclectic area in there in terms of uses. We got Vision Source in there. We got eye doctors. We've got beer. We got wine. We got swimming pools. We got all kinds of police departments, and it's kind of eclectic. But I've asked the question last one of these approved. I said, "How's it work? How many complaints have we got?" And what I heard was big 0, and it's kind of going by okay. With respect to traffic, I think, any one of these uses could be more or less than if it were manufacturing. We just don't know. We never know that. I mean, you could have a little, machine shop in there with 50, 60 people that show up every morning and whatnot, and be more traffic-wise than people coming by for an evening glass of wine or whatever this is going to be. So I'm not hung up on the wide open, because in my mind, any one of these or any combination there, I think fits the eclectic uses that are working fine with 0 complaints. So I support it as well.
Thanks, John.
Mr. Chairman, one must pick their words carefully and with taste, because they may have to eat them. And I've decided that I misspoke. I support what John says. However, the one thing that is new information to me is that the owner isn't here, but the architect. And it would have been very helpful if the owner was here, so we could ask these questions of him.
No,
So, I mean, if he wants to have the architect represent him, that's fine. He'll do a great job. But, some of the questions come from the owner, or directed towards the owner.
I have a follow-up question.
No, I've closed the public testimony at this time for discussion. I kind of agree with Peter. If the owner wanted to be here and if there was more presentation by the owner, architect, fine, maybe some of these questions would have been answered. But we sit here now and discussing it, and further discussion. If not, someone can make a motion of either approval or denial, and we'll go from there.
Chairman.
Yes.
Commissioner Koppas had asked a question about precedent, and I just wanted to address that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Randy, go ahead.
Precedent it's a pretty complex and complicated issue, so it's really not something we need to address in this meeting. But yes, there would be a potential for discrimination if you approve this and deny something. But precedent is based on unique circumstances of every piece of property, so you can always find differences.
Thank you, Randy. Anyone ready to make a motion?
And one more thing,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the conditions is probably not worded correctly, where it says no permanent structures or monuments can be built over the sewer line. Wastewater policy does not allow any construction or structures within the easement, not just over the line. The sewer line lies within an easement that has 10 feet on either side of it. So I think
More of
the.
an easement.
So I
Over
think the
the
condition should be,
Sewer easement.
no permanent structures or monuments can be built within the sewer easement.
In the sewer, not line, but easement. Okay, thank you. Okay,
I'll make a motion.
go right ahead.
And I guess I equally don't disagree with the uses, but I would, maybe more of the form that it's coming to us in. But I make a motion that we deny, the special use permit
We'll have to go through the findings
on this page here. Yep.
Yeah, so if we go through each one of
Go
those
through each one?
findings, yeah, and just read from A
This
down.
matter have coming forth the Planning Commission on September 12th, 2023, and there being present a person requesting approval of item SP 7-23, a multi-use special permit in the LM Light Manufacturing Zoning District. Applicant, Azardo LLC, location 3912 Schreiber Way. The findings would be
B1 through B7,
B1 through B7. Do you want me to read all this?
right, and then B8,
You
The
just
la-
have to say whether they're adopted or not adopted.
Whether they are adopted or not. That the land,
All 7 are just the technical requirements.
yeah, all
of the
7 are
statute.
the technical requirements. That the land uses are commercial and residential. That the
So
comprehensive,
you don't have to read them all.
you don't have to read them all.
You just
they
have
are
to say whether they are adopted or not
Okay.
adopted.
Pursuant to section 17-.09.22, special use permit criteria, a special use permit may be approved only if the proposal conforms to all of the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission.
so you'd have to go, the proposal is or is not.
The proposal is or is not, but I don't have to list
Which-
all of them.
You can pick whichever one you
whichever
feel
one.
is not, let's say.
The proposal is not fostering goal CI1, Coeur d'Alene citizens are well-informed, responsive, and involved in community discussions. I don't feel like this involves the neighbors in the discussion of the actual use. The design and planning of the site is compatible. Can I say that? I can say that, right? And continue down that one, right? Okay. It is compatible with the location setting and existing uses on adjacent properties, considering the map of properties and special use permits. It is compatible. And the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public services. We've heard from the,
You just have to either
That
say
it
will.
will.
Will,
that
okay.
will be. And so
The planning
the
commission.
planning commission pursuant to aforementioned finds a special use permit as described in the application should be denied without prejudice.
Okay. I have a motion for denial without prejudice. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second. I'll second it.
I have a second from Luthrop. We can have roll call on, so we're denying this special use permit on this vote. Is that correct?
That's my
Peter,
opinion.
you're
That's
going to
yes.
deny this?
Deny it.
Deny it.
Yeah. My understanding that if I can, the process, if this motion passes, the applicant can come back to us at any time, or?
That's the without
No,
prejudice, right? They
correct.
can
So
come back at
deny
any time.
outright, they have to wait a year. Deny without, or deny without prejudice, they can come back at any time.
Thank you.
So okay, so I have a motion to deny without precedence. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Fleming,
No.
Ingalls,
No.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Coppice,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
No. And it passes. Denial, it passes. Okay, so that's that one for that particular motion. And can the applicant appeal this to city council at any time?
Yes, within 14 days of this evening's meeting.
There's an appeal process within 14 days. The applicant can go in front of city council if they like to. Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.